Yeah, good to see you. How you doing?
Good, Mr. Stein. Looking good.
How are you? Great to see you.
Doing well. I feel like in some way I'm in the presence of greatness. Um, Both of you together. I think it's funny.
I was going to do the same thing.
What,
Well, what do you mean by that?
when I announced the agenda, I probably got more comments on this conversation than any other because what people said was this. They were said this is really kind of a very visible show of solidarity throughout the industry because I have a bit of a relationship with both of you, and anyone that knows either of these gentlemen personally know that they are deeply passionate and deeply caring about the automotive industry and also about their families. So there was, it created a little bit of a buzz, and I think for good reason. So we have, let me look at the time. So we have about 20 minutes to talk about perspective. And the topic of this, right, is an industry working together because you are two that see a lot of different pieces and you hear a lot of different perspectives. And, I would just like to hear from you how you're starting to see the industry working together. And I just want to pose that question. I'll let each of you talk for a little bit and then we'll just get some questions for sure. But first, I want to say, guys, you have some good competition. Ron Burgundy is the #1 news anchor of all time with 46% of the vote, followed by Walter Cronkite with 30, Tom Brokaw with 14%, and Dan Rather pulling up the rear at 11%. So, how now, brown cow? I don't know that we'll ever surpass.
And I'm not sure where we are on that list, but we can't seem to find the bottom of the list, right?
We had to exclude you because we knew that you guys would be battling it out for first. So
I do have my Scotch glass right here and ready. So.
Yeah, right. Of course. So to start off, Jason, why don't you just give us from your perspective, how do you see the industry working together and coming together in a way maybe that you haven't seen before?
I think it starts with the Detroit automakers. And, by the way, thanks for having us on. And it's an honor to be sharing this panel as well. And we were just discussing while we're in the virtual green room how great it is that CBT and Automotive News can be on the same program together, making history here, Paul. So
I think
well
so.
done.
Thank you.
But whether it starts with GM making ventilators or Ford with their activity and transforming their assembly lines, obviously you see the industry doing something that is very reminiscent of times that would take us back, World War II sort of era efforts. But also at the grassroots level, there have been enormous opportunities for dealers to come together, or even for companies like Cars.com, which would be considered a technology, and I know that Alex is going to be on, but to be a technology first company working very hard with federal lobbyists in order to create a situation where they can represent the brick and mortar side of the industry in order to get the sale provisions or sale guidelines changed at the Department of Homeland Security level. So those are, when Alex and I talked a couple of weekends ago and he said that he wanted to start this effort, he posed it in a very appropriate way. He said, we have to be out there for the industry, working as hard as we can in no matter what form, whether it's digitization or whether it's traditional brick and mortar, but we've got to make sure that there's the opportunity to sell cars. And so I think those are just a couple of examples from the manufacturing side as well as from the retail side, where at least we've seen some of those stories.
Great. Thank you for that. Very, very unique and unprecedented events. Jim, I'm going to move over to you. What have you seen going on that you maybe have never seen before in the sense of an industry coming together?
Well, I too want to thank you for bringing us together here on this panel, and I'm honored to be sharing it with Jason. I think Jason and the entire team at Automotive News does a great job of covering this as well. So thanks for all that you do there. With regard to the industry, I think what I'm impressed with is the way that all of the companies that serve the auto industry and auto dealers on a daily basis have really come together and said, look, we're going to drop our fees. We're going to increase our services. We're going to be there 24 hours a day. I just spoke to the vice president of CDK. He, rattled off a number of different things and initiatives that they've launched since this has taken place, this coronavirus situation. And he speaks for so many others. There's just every single company that I can think of that and certainly a number of our supporters and advertisers, both on CBT and Automotive News, have come together and said, how can we help the dealers during this time? Forget the fees right now, or at least, they're discounted in a large part, in a large way. But it's really good to see. And dealers are, I think, appreciative of that as well. In fact, I know they are in many cases, because they need all the help that they can get. We're all looking, for what the government, program is going to be all about in terms of, the stimulus package that was passed. I think that's going to help dealers in a very, very big way, as well as you all know, the auto industry is one of the number one, or one of the major driving forces in our economy. So it's, to everyone's advantage that we keep this alive. And I applaud Alex Vetter for what he's doing there, Jason. I heard your podcast with him, and I was very impressed with the fact that he's got that forethought to say, hey, let's keep America rolling, right? That GM
Very
put
true.
out.
Yeah,
that's exactly what it was. Yeah, very similar tone to it.
Yeah, it really did. And I think it's a great idea, great initiative. I applaud him for that. And as I said, there's so many other companies out there. We would spend our entire 20 minutes just going through the whole list. But very impressed to see how it's all coming together.
Yeah, this is one of the things that I think both of you have a perspective on, in the sense that I see a little bit of it too from my seat. And is that, when you look at the front line of the dealership right now, depending on which state you're in, depending on how like the closures are rolling out, and pretty soon, the valve is going to start to be opening up. And that's going to start to happen in different cadence across different states in the country. But even as a lot of dealerships have had to close and they have a lot of people at home, you, I'm sure, are seeing, and I'm seeing as well, that there's this whole back channel of business that's happening. People moving to support dealers, positioning to make sure they're going to have what they need when the valve opens back on. And so I think it's a little bit easy to get disconnected, because, right now I don't have 300 people at home, right? But I do see all the things that are going on in the background, where there's this level of optimism and productivity. Are you seeing the same thing that I'm seeing behind the scenes?
Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, Jim. The only thing I would say, Paul, is what's happening is that dealers are still very much open for business, and they're very willing, where it's obviously allowable. They're very willing to be in a position where they can take a sale, they can turn a lease, they can do appropriate social distancing, they can ensure that all of their employees are safe and team members are safe. Like Jim, we talk to dealers all the time, and the main theme has been, we are here to serve in whatever capacity that we can. So business is going on in the background. We will be ready for whatever that looks like on the other side of it. But make no mistake, even just, essentially in week 3 of this, there is a earnest desire on the part of dealers to remain very much open for business.
For sure. Jim, do you have thoughts?
Yeah, there's no question about it. And there's dealers, we've spoken to a number of dealers too, that actually, from a standpoint of, what's the right thing to do. Some of them are challenged with that too, because they've got, employees that have families and such, and the disease seems to be growing, or the virus, I should say, out there. So there's a concern about the welfare of their own people. So they are, they've got this decision to make in many cases. Do we shut down completely and just say, that's it? We really can't serve the needs of the consumers in our marketplace, because we really have to focus on, just keeping everybody out of the service center or the showroom? Or, do we look to our staff to have those hand raisers that say, hey, I can be here, assuming that we take the necessary precautions with our customers and with the cleanliness of the showrooms and what have you. And I think all of the dealers that we've spoken to have been challenged with that, but they've also been inspired by their teams coming together to say, no, let's serve the public, serve the markets that we're in, because there is a strong automotive need in any given time. And let's pull together and let's get these people, these men and women that need their cars every day. Let's think about the doctors and the nurses and the first responders and everyone that drives to work, especially in a time when we see mass transit being shut down, right? So now they really need their vehicles. So it's interesting to see that how many people have said that work inside of dealerships, and obviously it's about 1 million people a year, or 1 million people rather, that said, no, we'll hang in, and we'll be here to serve the public, which I'm very impressed with, because I don't know that I would do that if I were out there.
Yeah.
But I'm impressed with the fact that they're doing it.
Paul, also one more thing too, just to add on to what Jim just said.
Of course.
There's a transformation that's going on within the retail space that's occurring right now that I believe everyone's going to benefit from on the other side, which is the advancement of digitization, the advancement of a different form of customer service, looking at things like technology-based applications that will allow retailers to operate, in probably a more efficient way than they might have thought about even 3 months ago. So if there's one helpful ray of light in this whole thing, is the fact that dealers are equipping themselves with all of the necessary tools to make transactions happen now, knowing that when things do normalize, that they will be in a much better position technically to serve customers, which is something that's been talked about forever. And now you'll see that move to the forefront in terms of their ability to serve effectively.
In a hurry, it's like one of those rare situations where business has like slowed or stopped in some instances. And I'm sure every busy business person out there, every busy sales manager has always had that moment where you're like, oh, if I could just get everything to stop, right? So I could think straight and implement a change. Yeah. And granted, the situation is tough, but taking advantage of it in the sense that now I can implement a change I've wanted to, or I know is valuable. When the valve turns back on, it's not just going to be full speed, it's going to be 120%. And so, like you said, like this rare exhale where people can actually get something done and give customers something they actually want, is monumental in both senses and both sides, both to making your system better and also having the time or at least thought to do it. And we're going to talk to some people later. There are a lot of industry partners waiting to help and implement right now. And a lot of them have reduced fees, and a lot of them have like plans to implement quickly. So I think that's a great insight. Another thing I was thinking of, this might, from a manufacturer's side, because this might breed some really new technologies in vehicles. Jason, last time you and I talked, said Automotive, you thought, had an opportunity to be seen as a tech leader, and not just as, a transportation industry. And I'm even thinking, like, without a doubt, when we come out of this, we're going to be much more germ conscious than we've ever been as a society. And, clean air and clean surfaces and things like that are going to become much more desirable. So, the car cabins, filters, HEPA filters, surfaces, there's probably an opportunity there that we're going to see positive pivots in the manufacturing side, in the sense it's just going to make us healthier overall.
Yeah, you've seen that in the luxury space, in the premium sector, where Mercedes-Benz, Audi, BMW have been at the forefront of some of those advanced cabin interior filters and the technology that they've put into that. You're exactly right. And I think the other byproduct that you've seen come out of this pandemic is that there are services and vendors who are also available to make sure that those surfaces are clean, even in a used environment. So yeah, out of crisis breeds, creativity and a change of convention. And I think that you're seeing that in many ways.
Yeah.
I
just want to pick up on what Jason was talking about earlier too, about the digital retailing. I think in many cases, what we're going to find over the course of the next couple of months, as digital retailing becomes even more popular, not just on the dealer side, but more on the consumer side, is that it's actually going to be letting the toothpaste out of the tube. I don't think we're going to be able to get those people that found it enjoyable to purchase a vehicle completely online from these new car dealers now to ever want to come back in to the dealership and wait the 3 or 4 or 5 hours that in many cases we put them through, something we've been challenged with for 50 years. Why does it take so long to buy a car when in reality we can do it online very quickly? So I agree with you, Jason. I think that we're going to be in a new normal with regard to how consumers acquire their vehicles, and then more so how dealers look at that and also adapt. If they're not looking at it already, they should be. But certainly in the future, it's going to be something that we're going to see a lot more of. There hasn't been anyone out there, I don't think, that's viewing us, that's watching us now, that hasn't seen the Carvana commercial where somebody's on their phone. They pick out a vehicle it's flatbedded to their front door. They've done everything that they need to do online with a very liberal return policy. These are the disruptors that are changing this industry by the minute. And for new car franchise dealers that are not taking notice to that and following suit, I think they're going to find the future difficult.
Yeah, I think that if you don't implement that digital solution, this situation has forced us through the discomfort of being willing to accept change, right? It's just been placed upon us. It will become the standard. And if a dealership doesn't have a digital retailing ecosystem that supports ease of use, I think that they're on their way out. I think you got to put the for sale sign out. I'll go as far to say that it's that serious that I think now mass adoption will happen, because it's very clear it can be done. People are willing to accept it, and we have the technology. Okay, so we have about a minute and a half left. I want to do a couple quick shots. Okay, we have a question that came up. Let me ask it to both of you and give you each 30 seconds. So does the delayed business, for instance, the pent-up demand of car sales, do you think it gets consolidated into Q3 or Q4 of 2020, or do you think it's lost? Jim, why don't you go? You're on the screen.
I think it's gonna get consolidated. I think we're gonna see, I hate to use the word a boom, but I think we're gonna see a pent-up demand. You know, when you combine the money, the checks that are being delivered to consumers right now, in many cases, they don't even necessarily need them. A number of my friends and relatives are fully gainfully employed, although they're all going to be receiving checks from the government. That combined with the OEM programs that are out there, that are programs that we have never seen before, 6 months, no payment, 0%, 84 months. I think you're going to see, an uptick, substantial uptick in business once this is done. And I don't know that it's going to make up for all of the business that we're not going to experience now. But in my humble estimation, I think that it will make up for a big part of it.
Very good. Jason, what do you think?
Well, I don't know if it's Q3 or Q4, and depending on who you talk to. Yesterday, I talked to Mike Dunn, who's spent a lot of time in China as the head of Zozo Go consultancy to the Asia Pacific region. He's watched the Chinese situation very closely. What he sees that's come back in China has been very gradual, very guarded. It has not been a light switch that has turned on overnight. I think we have to be very aware of that. I do believe that there will be pent-up demand. I agree with Jim that there will be a lot of money that's been held back. But what I don't know, and I think it's difficult for anybody to really predict, is just what the gradual movement to normalcy will mean to everyday Americans.
Yeah,
very good.
Good point.
Gentlemen, it has been an honor to spend some time with you today. Thank you so much for making time and making space for it.
We're honored.
Look forward to seeing you again soon.
Right.
And I still don't know that we've figured out quite how to pull you out of the meeting. So if you can end the meeting on your end, or you can just hang out and stare at the camera, that's fine too. But thank you again. I'm sure I'll be seeing you soon, and hopefully I'm looking forward to that handshake and that hug when I see you in person.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Take care.